apparently was not asked in 2000. And the two parties tied in 1980 when inflation was a top issue. The only time the measure was out of sync with the outcome was way back in 1948 when Americans believed the Republican Party was better able to handle the most important problem, which were international issues, but returned the Democratic incumbent Harry Truman to office regardless. So that was an outlier in 1948. Also, when it comes to economic and international matters, Gallup tracked the perception of voters who could best handle the economic and international matters broadly. And when it came to that, Americans currently give the Republican Party a 6-point edge, 50 to 44%, as the party they think would do a better job of keeping the country prosperous. All right, this is very important. This is why it's so important for Donald Trump to stay focused like a laser beam on the economy, on inflation, on government largesse, on inflation, those issues that are obviously impacting people's pocketbooks, crime, migrant crime that's occurring, and also a shortage of homes, resources with illegal aliens coming into the country. It's absolutely astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. So these are some measures that could be devastating, that I believe will be devastating for Kamala Harris's campaign. So again, Republicans hold a 6-point edge on these issues, 50 to 44%, at least on this issue of economic and international matters. Gallup has asked this question apparently since 1951 in 16 presidential elections since. Then, when one party has had at least a minimal advantage on this measure, that party has won 12 out of 16 times. So the Republicans are leading on that measure. On the third measure, so you have party identification and leaning. Republicans are leading on party performance on issues, including the economy, immigration, the government, inflation, and also economic and international matters. Republicans are leading there. Number 3, economic confidence. Gallup's economic confidence index is currently at negative 28, indicating Americans' attitudes about the economy are negative on balance. The rating is derived from 22% of Americans describing current economic conditions as excellent or good, versus 48% saying they are poor, and 32% believing the economy is quote unquote getting better, versus the 62% saying it is getting worse. So that does not bode well for Kamala Harris. And with Joe Biden appearing on The View and saying, I am Kamala Harris is me, that could prove devastating for the Kamala Harris campaign, again, as long as the Trump administration or the Trump campaign stays focused on the issues that Americans care most about. Remember, Trump he's got the base. Kamala, for the most part, well, she doesn't necessarily have all of her base. Some of her base is defecting. I think that is a good chance that whether it's Black, Latino voters, they may stay home because they're not excited about they may not be excited about either one of the candidates, but especially Kamala Harris. But Trump seems to be taking some of those. He's gaining momentum amongst Latino voters and Black voters, and that, again, won't bode well for Kamala Harris. Also, in incumbent election years, talking about economic confidence, a negative 28 economic confidence score will be closer to what is typically been a losing strategy. We've seen it in 92. We've seen it in 2008. We've seen it in 2016, rather than a winning strategy that we saw in 96, 2004, and 2012 for the president's party. In 2020, Americans' evaluations were essentially neutral. That's when Donald Trump lost. Wink, wink. All right. Number 4, national satisfaction. How do Republicans rate on this? These numbers usually means that the incumbent loses. What are these numbers? 22% of Americans are satisfied with the way things are going in the United States at this time. Only 22%, according to Gallup. Satisfaction levels this low have been associated with incumbent presidents losing their reelection bids in 1980, 19%. In 1992, when there was 22%, and in 2020, when these numbers were at 28%. So currently, 22% of Americans are satisfied with the way things are going. That does not bode well for Kamala Harris at all. Number 5, presidential job approval rating. Now, this one is a little different, all right, because Joe Biden's numbers have actually crept downward. He's at 39% as opposed to 48%. But remember, since he was kicked to the curb by Nancy Pelosi, George Clooney, Barack Obama, the donors and the power that be that are pulling the puppet strings and all that kind of good stuff. His numbers are down at 39%. But this is such an anomaly, right, with Biden being kicked to the curb, that I don't believe that the approval rating for the incumbent will factor in that much this year, unless Trump again effectively ties Kamala Harris to the Biden campaign. And Joe Biden has just done that for him on The View. Thank you, Joe Biden. We really appreciate that. At 39% job approval rating, Biden is well below the 48% threshold for past presidents who were reelected. The 2024 presidential nominee, obviously Donald Trump, lost the 2020 election when he had 46% job approval. Now, here's an important thing, too, something to note. Kamala Harris's job approval rating, she got a slight bump, went to 47%. She's back down to 44%. That does not bode well. In presidential election years, when the incumbent was not running for re-election, the opposition party won all but in 1998. The losses occurred whether the incumbent president was popular. That was 1960, that was 2000, and that was 2016. Or when they were unpopular, 1952, 1968, and 2008. So the presidential job approval rating, again, Joe Biden is down, but Trump has to tie Kamala Harris to Joe Biden. He's focused. He's doing that now. Her numbers have dropped from 47% job approval rating to 44%. Does not bode well. Party favorable ratings. Now, this one is neck and neck. All right. So this is the only time where the Republican Party does not have favorables over the Democrat Party. All right. So this year, the numbers are basically neutral. So in September, Gallup poll finds that 43% of Americans saying they have a favorable opinion of the Republican Party, as opposed to 42% of the Democratic Party. That's basically a wash. In many presidential election years, according to Gallup, like now, the parties had similar favorable ratings. In the years in which one party had an advantage, that was 96, that was 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016. That party went on to win. All right. Number 7, preference for government activity. Americans generally have expressed a preference for a limited government role. That has certainly not been the case with the Biden-Harris administration. Guys, until next time, do not grow weary doing good. Thank you for tuning in to The Carl Jackson Show.